question. So if you have question in English or in Russian, type your question here just on the right part. Well, next question is difficult. If there are, what are the worst things among being of entomologist? Among being of entomology, what is the worst thing? Quite curious, very unusual question about worst thing in being entomologist. Difficult things in it to be entomologist. Well, you know, to be interested in entomology is difficult to be interested when you are just child in a school time. Then you are becoming independent in university. In university, everyone usually ignorant about your interest. Nobody doesn't worry about your interest. Are you interested in insects, in plants, in fish, in bees or bumblebees, or just in mathematics or physiology, biochemistry, or in DNA? Nobody is not interested. You are interested in something. So this is your particular interest. So nobody worried about it. Only your relatives can support you, or can be ignorant, or can be reluctant to your interest, or can be supportive very much. My parents were very supportive, and they supported me in my study in university, supported my study for my PhD in another city, because I came to another city from my home city. I came to Ukraine, to another city. I've been living for myself more than 7 years. After 3-4 years of my PhD study, I've been graduated with my PhD, and then I've been living alone for 7 years in separate apartments, like student. Actually, it was quite hard time. But when you're young, it's not so. It's difficult to push forward, because it's difficult to find new place, difficult to find new work, difficult to understood some relations with people, difficult to be accepted in a job place. But if you have interest and you can ask another people, people can help you. So the general question that if you have a problem, if you have questions, ask these questions from another people. And always, if you're asking questions, you will find another people, you will find another special situation which can be very helpful for you to answer for these questions, to solve these small, big, tiny, serious problems. And difficult question to be entomologist was a difficult time after the crash of a USSR. Well, this was a difficult time to be entomologist and to be scientist in the former USSR, like in Ukraine, in Russia, because in the time between 90s till the 2000 years, between these years, scientists in our country, in Ukraine, have been paid very little. Now they paid relatively enough for survival. No, not compatible. There is no comparison with a salary in a Western or Eastern world. Definitely, this is in West or in East, people are earning as entomologists twice, not twice, but 20 times more, 10 times more, 20 times more, or even more and more. So that's why if you're just living in your country, like Russia or Ukraine, in our situation, difficult things to be entomologist, to receive not very high profit from your job, because salary of a scientist in the former USSR country is not very high. In other countries, like this question came from Turkish Republic, salary of a scientist is honorable. So position of a scientist in Turkish Republic is serious and well paid. How to say? Several times more well paid rather than in Ukraine. So, and that's quite good. Not several times, uh, approximately 5 times more, even more than 5 times more. So, what's the same I could say about Germany, Poland, France, United Kingdom, and America? So, the job of entomologist, if this is a job, usually well paid. So, this is a good idea to be entomologist if you have devotion to entomology. Next question? What is next question? Why scientists kill insects? Why scientists kill insects? That's an interesting question. I usually try to be very polite about people who are killing some animals for the study. Difficult to be polite about entomologists, but entomologists killing insects for the study, for the science. So you must be so serious to accept it. Because as one of my friend zoologists said, if you do not like to kill animals for the science, which is serious subject and serious question, let's go to the botanical institute. Let's go to the university to study botany or physiology without animals. Because to study zoology, to study entomology, you need to collect some animals, even some for zoologists, some you need to collect some vertebrates and study dead vertebrates animals. And entomologists who study insects, you need to collect some insects in different traps and by different methods and study them in collection usually dead. If you are just studying behavior and ecology of insects, it's possible to study living insects, but still they will die after a certain period in laboratory. But to study their life cycle, you can collect insects and you can manage studying their life cycle in laboratory culture, for example. So you can study laboratory culture of insects as well, not killing insects. But to kill them, okay, that's a subject which we need to do because we need to study them to receive scientific knowledge. This is like study anatomy for medical students, medical workers. You cannot study anatomy without only on with computer, only with pictures, only with photographs. You need to study anatomy, and entomologists need to study insects themselves in collections. Maybe final question from this man in from Turkish Republic. What do you recommend to young insect lovers? Young insect lovers. Very interesting question. I was surprised that some people saying that hello to Roman. Some people saying that their parents, their relatives do not support them in their interest, in their study, in their behavior, in their curiosity. Yes, you need to understand that the world is very different. If you like something, it doesn't mean that it will be interesting for somebody else. If I liked insects, it was not a subject for another people, for all my relatives, by the way. If I can count my relatives, direct relatives on my father from my father's side and from my mother's side, this will be more than 20 people, maybe 30 people. I counted them. I was only one among 30 people who is studying insects and who is studying science. Even you say many people like bees and honeybees, but in this time honeybees were very rare business. Nobody didn't have honeybees, but I've seen honeybees in apiary actually in a village of my grandfather, from the side of my mother. Yes, and I was very curious when I was coming just near the honeybees farm. It was very interesting. I didn't come because my my relatives were worried about honeybees. Honeybees look like dangerous. So that's why, if you have interest, ask yourself questions from another people, and other people will tell you the answer. For example, I was interested in bumblebees and hymenoptera bees, and I found name of scientists in literature like Viktor Rebennikov, very famous entomologist from Novosibirsk. I sent him a letter. I found entomologist name is Khalifman. Khalifman, Iosif Khalifman, very famous in the Russian community, who not studied, but who was writing books, popular books for a wide audience. I found somewhere. At this time we didn't have computers, but we had different journals. We had a subscription for newspapers, for journals, and I received several journals with nature articles. So I found address and I found name of a scientist in a journal. I sent a letter and I said, I'm interested to contact with Yosef Khalifman, the writer who was writing about bumblebees and honeybees and ants. And he answered me. He sent me a postcard, and we were exchanging with postcards with him by post mails. And it was quite improving, interesting communication. He said, very soon my new book about wasps will be published. I was on the first degree of my university. I said, oh, very interesting. Let's go to the bookstore. Yes, that's great. I found his new coming book published in 1985, approximately 84, when I was still in university. I said, and I wrote him, yes, I found your book, and asked him one question, another question. And now that's quite easier, much easier to communicate, not with your relatives if you have harsh time with your relatives who do not understand you, do not accept your curiosity, your serious interest, or just hobby interest. You can contact with people like me. By the way, here on YouTube, here on Facebook, or somewhere near your university, near your school, near your elementary school. You can type question on Facebook community and ask question. You can type question in iNaturalist community society. You can take photos now much easier with a smartphone. Very easy. So communication became very easy now. So, and actually, as the common people in community, like people who is like in gardening, for example, can advise you something, or some serious scientist like me can send you kind of advice, or maybe can send you some papers, articles, scientific articles, or books, even books. Yes, now it's easy to, not easy, but possible to download some books from internet. I download many books, scientific books, not popular books, scientific books about insects from internet. In some countries it is not permitted, but in Ukraine, in Russia, it's permitted very much because we have C-Hub server, and we can download for free with no money. You can download for free many articles, scientific articles for the study, because when you study something under the microscope, after that you need to type publication paper with the help of some previous publication, previous articles, previous books. So now it is became easier to find literature with internet. If you are interested in specific group of insects, in specific mode of life of insects, behavior, ecology, it's possible to type question in and find it in internet. You need to study English language. This is a very important advice for young lovers of insects, because you need to communicate with people using English language. For Russian speaking people, easier, we have a wider audience. Russian is very big Russia very big country and Russian-speaking communities worldwide, from north till the south, from the west till the east. That's very good. Till from Chukotka till the United Kingdom, people Russian-speaking living now. From the north, from Yamal and Taimyr, now Russian-speaking people living and watching. Till the south, parts of Perth, or maybe Sydney, or somewhere south, till Tasmania. Some Russian-speaking people living in Tasmania and in South Africa, and even somewhere in Argentina, and can search and find something useful in Russian and in YouTube. But YouTube community is growing slowly because internet is promoting something funny. Something funny. Scientific research is not promoted so much because this is very narrow straight of life. But nevertheless, I'm trying to make some promotion of science. Aren't you? Yes, aren't me? Yes, I hope so. I did some improvement for scientific interested for some people. And some people connected with me from Russian speaking community, for example, connected from Peru, from Namibia, from South Africa, from Thailand, people from Russia as well, from different cities of Russia, from India, people talking with me after watching my video on YouTube. So that's why I hope it was helpful for some people. And now I want to answer the questions from another person, because another person asked me long time ago questions because he expected to come to Ukraine. We have not much time rest, but still this person wanted to come to Ukraine from Czech Republic. From Czech Republic, I do not tell the name for specific for privacy. And but questions were very interesting. For example, I answered why I'm interested to repeat it again for a wide audience. First question: in Czech Republic, it's possible, for example, for students or other interested people with some knowledge in biology to make a special practical study, practicum, or internship in the museum or at the institute. Is it possible or is it common in Ukraine too? This means to work, for example, for 2 or 3 weeks at the museum or Museum of Natural History without payment as a freelancer or volunteer. Some of our students asked me this question. A quite interesting question. Very interesting question. If some people like to come to our department, for instance, to study for free without payment, yes, I guess so. This is possible. But for beginning, we need to communicate with all steps in the institute and in department. Definitely, this is very polite and professional way. In general, it is possible if you study specific subject which is deposited in this department. For example, in department of vertebrates, invertebrates, department of entomology, where is the chief of department of each department, you need to ask permission from the chief of a department. Maybe the chief of department is very busy, or maybe he has a special opinion about it. If you want to study, for instance, these parasitic wasps, like behind of me, and you are from Laos, Taiwan, or China, and you are interested to study parasitic wasps, and you come in for your personal internship, or you are from United States of America, why not? But first of all, you need to ask chief of my department, because I'm not a chief of department, but chief of department can allow you to come and make some preparations before, because you need what? You need to microscope, you need light, you need space, you need some drawers with insects, you need attention as well. You need it because somebody need to give you a key, some need to follow you just to show you how to live everywhere around. How somebody need to close the door and department as well. Some security questions. So if chief of department will allow you to come, okay, first of all we need to discuss it with the department chief. Well, next question. Also regarding my institute. Yes, very interesting one. I guess that your Schmalhausen Institute has a very large entomological collection. Is it the largest collection in the Ukraine, or yet in other state collections with almost the same size in Ukraine? Are any large private collections? Well, very good question, by the way. Very good questions. Especially about entomology collection. Actually, there are enough large and Ukrainian Entomological Society in Ukraine. There are some entomologists who are studying systematics, taxonomy, and ecology, and there are some who study ecology and some plant protection. For example, usually plant protection departments has no collection. As a rule, plant protection, forest protection. There are some departments and chambers in universities, and it depends from the specialist of university who is studying this particular group of insects. For example, very large entomological society in Kharkiv city. This is eastern part of Ukraine. In Kharkiv, there is an agricultural university in Kharkiv. In university. So, for example, and we have even special apartments, not apartments, we have a special building for Entomological Society of Kharkiv, where we're making some meetings. And there is a strong team of entomologists in Kharkiv. There are entomological collections in Lviv city on the eastern border of Ukraine. This is a Lviv Natural History Museum. Quite a large collection of Diptera, Hymenoptera, bumblebees, beetles, different groups in Lviv. In Rivno city, a specialist working on Diptera. There is a Diptera collection. In our department, we have two departments in my institute, Schmalhausen Institute of Zoology of National Academy of Sciences in Kiev, Ukraine. We have two departments, one of general entomology and one of department of entomophagous insects, like here on this picture, Hymenoptera. One here, this is parasitic Hymenoptera, and general entomology has a department has collection of a Diptera, Coleoptera, then flies, Diptera, Coleoptera, butterflies and moths, small micro Lepidoptera and Macrolepidoptera. Microlepidoptera, tiny small Lepidoptera, and Macrolepidoptera and nocturnal moths in a collection of beetles, Coleoptera, especially beetles of Carabida beetles, Curculeanidae beetles. This is a department for general entomology and several very large groups of flies, Diptera flies, Tephrotidae, Syrphidae, and many other small and big groups of Diptera flies, if I didn't miss any. And also collection of Orthoptera, grasshoppers, crickets, everything belonging to the Orthoptera. And it depends from the specialist, our scientists who are working in the department. And so some other specialists working in some other universities, like in Kiev University, there are some specialists who are working on Sphecidea wasps in Kiev National University. Taras Shevchenko University, specialist working on Sphecidid wasps, specialist working on odonata dragonflies. And there are some groups of entomologists who are working in Odessa, very big group and team in Odessa. This is a Odessa Institute of Biotechnics who are working for practical questions of entomology, and groups who are working in Odessa University about who is working with insects and with mites. And there are some groups of mites which are studied in our university, in our institute, and in some other cities of Ukraine. Well, I guess these are some questions. And what about private collections? There are some private collections of beetles, butterflies in Ukraine, but it depends. It needs to connect with specialists who are particularly working with the beetles and butterflies, because we have very private connections only, because these connections only built on the private communication. This is not official communication. So probably people who are working with beetles and butterflies and moths in Ukraine, some have connections with private people, private collections, so possible to connect with as well. And from time to time we're making meetings, entomological society making meetings in Ukraine, so usually twice every 2 years there is a meeting, like a conference of Ukrainian Entomological Society, and every 4 years there is a meeting of general, like a congress of Ukrainian Entomological Society. And one interesting question, finally I will say, is it allowed to catch for private reasons some butterflies and beetles and insects in Ukraine, somewhere in open landscape? We are not talking about species in the Red Book, such species living in the native reserves, national parks. No, just about species living in a natural environment, because in Czech Republic it's very strictly for private people to collect any insect without any official scientific background or papers, without permission. For the question is quite interesting, but answer is very simple. Fortunately now, even not even reservations in national parks, in simple in a common landscape, it is possible to collect butterflies, flies, beetles, any type of insects, moths, without special permission. If you need to study them in a reservation in national parks, it needs additional permission to come to national park and to take some insects, small part of insects, for scientific purposes, to study them at the laboratory. I didn't answer for all questions. Hopefully some questions will come soon under this video. Well, one person is again asking question, if I want to collect in Ukraine, do I need collecting permits? No permits for collecting insects in Ukraine. You can collect everywhere without permits. Not everywhere except national reservations, national parks, so protected areas. Outside of protected areas, near cities, in a forest, in any kind of landscape, in the mountains, near a river, near a pond, near a stream, it's collected free of charge, free without any paper. So if you're coming, any small insects or big insects can be collected free of charge without any special permission. This is not like somewhere in Peru, maybe in Brazil or in India, where it is prohibited to collect any type of, or in Australia, it's prohibited to collect any insect outside without scientific purpose. In Ukraine, it's allowed. It's considered that scientific purpose belonging to the scientists. Scientists will collect only for scientific purposes, and private collectors were not very common in Ukraine, by the way, and not many private collectors come into Ukraine, at least now. maybe we can discuss about it later. Thank you for watching this time. Thank you for being with me. Thank you for your attention. I hope so. It was interesting and funny and entertaining and knowledgeable for you. So welcome to next time to my video streams, and welcome to connect me with through emails or through Facebook or through Skype, or just type, if you are on Gmail, type your question under this video. Good luck and see you soon on my channel. Bye bye. See you soon. Bye bye. And don't forget to visit my Patreon page to support me on Patreon page. Patreon page